So what are some of the seasonal food routines, habits, and rhythms that I have as a holistic nutritionist? And how have some of these rhythms and routines really helped me with a lot of my chronic health issues? Viral overload, Epstein-Barr, histamine issues, joint issues, digestive issues. How have some of these simple natural approaches really helped me to overcome some of those long-standing health symptoms? That's what we're going to dive into. Let's go. So I want to share with you some of the food routines that I have at this time of year. As a holistic nutritionist, I want to dive into some of the seasonal, slow living food shifts and routines and rhythms that I have, because as and when I notice the season changing, then I recognize that some things need to change as well with how I am eating and living. Because I've learned over the years that I am not just existing in nature, I am a part of nature. So as seasons shift, so do I. So I'm going to dive into just a couple of the rhythms and the routines that I do or have done at this time of year to really help with that. And what better place to start than with some buckwheat blueberry pancakes. So these are in no particular order, but I filmed this on a Saturday morning when I'm just making some pancakes. The kids have been asking for a while. I normally make pancakes from buckwheat flour, and this leads me into one of the things that's not necessarily seasonal, but I do tend to think about it more in the autumn time and winter time, and that is fermenting. So most people think of fermenting food in terms of sauerkraut or kefir, but this is something I try to do with all my grains. So I was making some buckwheat pancakes, as you can see me doing here. So 24 hours before, I placed it in some salted water and just let it naturally ferment, gather the yeasts of the air, just to really help to break down some of the different components of the carbohydrate before I eat them. So it's kind of like a little bit of a sourdough pancake, but without having to have a whole starter and all the upkeep that is required with a sourdough starter, which I know from history I'm not actually very good at. I need a little bit more faster, speedier approaches. So this time of year, I'm really thinking about soaking grains more, whether it's rice, whether it's buckwheat, whether it's flour. There's a great book called Nourishing Traditions that talks all about this. I'll link to it in the show notes. I read this book about 15 years ago, and it is really the traditional approach to preparing, especially grain-based foods. And I always think about it when it comes to autumn, late summer, and over the winter time of just really helping make the foods that we eat as digestible as possible. Because remember, it's not just about eating, air quotes, perfectly healthy food. It's really about what you can digest. The amount of clients that have come to me eating really healthy diets, but really struggling with symptoms because whilst they're eating healthy stuff, they are unable to digest it properly. It's happened so many times. And so remember, we're not just what we eat, we are what we digest. Then we have bone broth. So I have to say, this isn't something I just do at this time of year. I try to do this every month, but as we enter late summer and autumn, I'm really getting back into soup season. I like to do more salads over the summer, and I do a whole lot less soups, but as I start making more soups, I'm thinking bone broth. So this is me having made a big batch in my pressure cooker of bone broth. It's a great source of hydration as well as protein and lots of lovely amino acids, which again are really great for digestion. Bone broth can be really cheap to make. It's actually what we used to do before we had stock cubes. So you know those little powdery stock cubes, if you read the ingredients of that, is often a lot of flavorings and salt and potato starch. Stock and bone broth is basically what we did before we had stock cubes. So I try to do this every month, but especially when I'm starting to make more soups. And at this time of year, I really am doing a whole lot more soups and getting into my, soup game again. So one thing I like to do every year and make a bit of a mission for it, and will traipse over briar and thorn and bog and climb trees and kind of maybe nearly injure myself in order to get said thing, is every year I try to make a big batch of elderberry syrup for me, for the kids, for the family. Some years I've struggled to find them and I've just bought dried elderberries online, but I really love to get them fresh. This particular trip, as you can tell, is on a very, very wet day. The whole family got soaked, like down to our pants soaked. But we did find some, and I also found some more on another walk back from school. But I just the color of them is, they're full of polyphenols, and elderberries are really great for supporting the immune system. So as we enter autumn, the kids are back at school, there's more snot, there's more germs, there's a whole lot more stuff going around. I really like to have something that I know is made of so much good stuff and just going to help really support and bolster our immune system. So every year I try to make a batch and I keep it in the fridge. In my elderberry syrup, there's lots of different recipes online, so you can find all the different ways and methods. What I normally do is mix it with water. I'll add additional herbs like ginger, thyme, cloves. They all have medicinal properties to it, so I'll add all of those different kind of herbs and plants to it just to really add to all the nutrients, antioxidants, all that good stuff. And then obviously I follow the instructions, cook it over a long period of time. You can't eat elderberries raw, you do need to cook them. And then once it has cooled, if I have the budget and I'm organized enough, and I did with this batch, I will mix it with some cheaper Manuka honey, so that there's like so many nourishing good things. So not only are we getting all the elderberry goodness, we're also getting some Manuka honey. There's little extracts of ginger, of thyme, of cloves, of cinnamon. It's just like a superfood syrup, and because there's loads of honey in, kids love it, and it's really not difficult to give it to them. You know, they are asking for it in the morning. I take a teaspoon a day, the kids take, I take a tablespoon, the kids take a teaspoon, and I just try to make as much as possible just to kind of give our immune systems a big boost over the winter and autumn. And as a holistic nutritionist, I am also a total geek at heart. So sometimes it's easy to look at things like elderberry or some of the things I might mention in this video and just be like, oh, kind of nice hippie things to do. And I am a total hippie at heart. You know, my undergraduate degree was in fine art. I worked as an artist for years. I love me some hippie vibe, but I'm also a total geek. So when it comes to elderberries, these aren't just like nice kind of old wives' tales of things that are helpful. There was a 2016 meta-analysis that found elderberry supplementation reduced the duration and severity of cold and flu symptoms compared to placebo because they have an immune supportive and antiviral effects. There's been other randomized controlled trials that found elderberry extracts reduce flu symptoms by 4 days compared to placebo, and that overall the evidence looks that it helps to create a shorter, less severe colds and placebos. So I'm someone that has struggled with chronic fatigue and viral infections, things like Epstein-Barr and stuff in the past. So for me, at this time of year, and generally throughout the year, I'm really intentional about adding in antiviral based foods, plants and herbs, because I feel so much better when I have a little bit of additional antiviral support, things that we know from research that can be really helpful. So that's things like vitamin C, elderberry, even things like St. John's wort can be really, really helpful for me because I have that history, that kind of Achilles heel of viral infections that can flare up. So it's something that I do need to stay on top of. And elderberry is just one of many things that I use that really helps. And it also helps that it's delicious and the whole family love it. Makes it easier. Now, this next thing I want to take you on a journey with is something brand new, but I have wanted to do it for probably about 8 years, but I've been too busy having lots of small humans to look after. So this year, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make time. I have the headspace. I was quite excited. And one of the things I did, this is more I did at the end of August, start of September, but you could probably still do it now. I have definitely seen some of it around. And what I went to do was collect nettle seeds. So from the female plant, so you can see here I'm trying to show you, you get male and female, so you want the ones that are hanging low down. And every year I look at nettle seeds and I know how nutrient dense they are and just nourishing and wonderful, but I haven't had the headspace to collect them. So this year I kind of took a challenge, did it for the first time, went and gathered them. Yes, I did get stung a few times and I wore terrible shoes and I wasn't quite sure of the best, most efficient way to extract said seeds. But my body is also quite prone to histamine and having an overreactive histamine production with my mast cell activation syndrome, probably in the past before I did a lot of healing work. So for me, I really need to keep on top of having kind of antihistamine foods, a bit like with my antiviral stuff. These are just things I know because I've learned and understood my root cause. I know my body really well. I've done lots of private lab tests. Like, this is my job, and there's so much power in knowing your body. There's loads of fads on the internet about various different things, but the most powerful and best thing that you can do is knowing your body. So I know for me, I need to do antiviral support throughout the year. I know I need to help my histamine, my mast cells, in their histamine production. And so my body loves nettle. It loves nettle tea, it loves nettle tinctures, and the seeds work slightly different to the leaves and roots of nettles that have been quite well researched. Nettle seeds haven't been as well researched, so from like a geeky scientist perspective, that it's not as solid from an evidence perspective. But intuitively, I feel like it makes a lot of sense. Seeds are often really nutrient dense, and it is thought by medicinal herbalists that they can be really nourishing for the adrenals. And because they're so nutrient dense, it can be quite nourishing foods. So I just thought I'd give it a try this year. I thought it would feel like fun, so I kind of gave it a bash and learned some things along the way because I definitely got stung a few times. And this is me trying to like extract all the seeds by hand, and I gave up, to be honest. And I read somewhere that if you let them dry out somewhere cool and dry in the dark, then it's much easier. And it was 100% so much easier. So note to self, just pick them, let them dry for a week or so, and then try to extract the seeds. And it is so much easier. So here we have the dried ones, and now I'm just starting to break them up. So they're really small seeds. I have to say, this is a bit of a faffy thing. Making elderberry syrup or like fermenting buckwheat for pancakes is way easier, but I really want to try it this year, and it has felt really nourishing. I don't have a lot of quantitative evidence for this, other than it felt really fun, and I've been just sprinkling them on yogurt, on food. They have a really neutral, kind of nourishing taste to them. I didn't get loads, but it's been a really fun thing to do. And I always feel like with nettles, with dandelions, with the plants, everything that's blooming at certain seasons, I really think that nature has put it there for a reason, to nourish us, to help us. That our nature knows what our kind of bodies need, or it knows some of what our bodies need. Then we have apples. Apples are a great source of fiber, and to be honest, the main reason I collect apples is because I love apple crumble. So there's a community orchard near us, collect loads of them, freeze them. I make some applesauce with them, but mainly I like to have bags so that I can make big apple crumble, do a lovely oat topping, and I feel like it's totally justifiable to have apple crumble for breakfast at this time of year. Throw a couple of berries in there. Oh, just the best. I am a big fan of dessert-like substances for breakfast wherever possible. And then along with making more soups, I also kind of have this natural instinct where I just want to stock up the freezer a little bit more. I want some bread in there. I want some more batch cooked foods. It's not like, all my meals were coming from my veg patch. You can tell that from the last video. But I just get this little kick where I want a lot more in the freezer. So this is me just batch making some gluten-free bread, putting apples in there, jam in there, just a couple of things that I feel stocked up for the winter time. And also at this time of year, And let's be honest, at all times of year, I'm really thinking about nutrient density and how can we get as many good, nourishing, healing foods into our system, whole foods, all of this wonderful stuff into our bodies, especially as we head into later months of the year. Because I don't know about you, but September, October, November, December can be quite full. I often feel like it's a bit of a fresh start, new year, lots of work projects. I often have quite a lot of energy. The kids are back at school. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And when life feels full or when it feels stressful, and also when I feel like I have a lot of creative, fun projects on, I really want to make sure that I'm nourishing myself. I really think that we forget far too often that the food that we eat is really the basis of our bodies, and our bodies are the basis of our lives. Years ago in my 20s, there's no way I could have been looking after chickens, working for a global mental health charity, working with hundreds of clients, having the headspace to even plan chickens in a coop and researching what to feed them, making elderberry syrup, gathering nettle seeds for goodness sake, like with the joint pain, the fatigue, the parasites, the gut infections, the anxiety, the mental health issues, just no, that wasn't happening. So the reason I'm passionate about food, the reason that I want to take a more seasonal, cyclical, slower approach, the reason I take the time to try and make more whole, nutrient-dense foods isn't for the sake of it. It's not to get some sort of badge of honor of you eat healthy food. It's so that I can live the life I want to live. It's so that I'm not limited by symptoms. And the main thing that I have learned is that when we can understand our bodies, when you can tune into and ignore all the fads out there, the fatty things out there to distract you, and the more you can tune into what your body needs, the more progress you're going to make. So I've learned over the years, and I've made lots of mistakes, but when I really understood my unique root causes, everything changed. And so in this video I've shared, I know I can produce and struggle to eliminate histamine. I know I need to support my body with antiviral things. I know I need to support my gut health through fermentation and soaking grains. I know I need nutrient density. I also have a lot of genetic mutations. That means my methylation pathway is poor. So for me, getting good quality eggs that are full of choline is a really important part of me supporting my own detoxification, mental health, and methylation pathways, which I really struggle with. I have a lot of genetic variations that don't create diseases, but also don't necessarily make my life easier and have contributed to a lot of my chronic health issues in the past. But knowing your body is such valuable information. That's why I do the root cause sessions. So if you don't know what your unique root causes are, click below and book your root cause deep dive session. That's a one-to-one with me. I've worked with hundreds of people now over the last 10 years. And when you understand what your symptoms mean, what your body needs, everything changes. And again, this isn't about eating certain things or restricting things or adding another thing to your to-do list. It's actually about you living the life you want to live. I couldn't have done all this stuff 10 years ago. I'm healthier now that I'm in my late 30s than I was in my 20s because I understood my root causes. And you're here to live one beautiful life, and that probably doesn't include keeping chickens or foraging for nettle seeds. That's totally fine. But whatever that includes, whether it's travel, further education, more babies, social justice, you need your health, you need your energy, you need your mental well-being, your hormones balanced, your gut health healthy in order to do that. And so making sure you're eating nutrient-dense food, for me that's eggs and fish and plants and all sorts of good stuff. The food that works for my body is really, really powerful. So I hope this has inspired you and just reminded you to follow the seasons. Listen to your body. You're a part of nature. You're not separate from it. And one of the best things you can do for your health, for your hormones, for your belly, for your future, For the 80-year-old you, the 90-year-old you, the best thing you can do for your future children, grandchildren, is to understand your unique root causes and to eat in a way that creates more freedom and liberation in your life.